Hey YouTube, in a previous video you saw me render down some venison tallow. I'll put a link to that video right up here. Today I'm going to melt that tallow back down and put it into some soap mold blocks to make suet. I'm going to mix in some scratch grains and we're going to feed it back to the chickens. Alright, I've got our big block of tallow back out here in the crock pot, and I'm just going to start melting this down so we can work with it again. While we're waiting for this to melt down, I can show you the two soap making molds that I picked up. They have a silicone lining with a pine wood outer. So obviously they're soap molds that can be used to make soap. They actually came with a couple different knife styles. One's a straight flat one and one's got the serrated edge on it to give it a different effect. So after you make a mold would harden, you'd pull your silicone lining out, and then because it's flexible you can push your mold out of it and use either one of these to select your size soap blocks. Basically, I'm not going to be using these for the suet. If I was going to give some to the native birds, I would do that so they can fit in the metal cages that we have hanging out in the trees. But I'm going to give all of this to our chickens. So my plan is to mix in a whole bunch of scratch grains and then pour that mixture into these molds, let it solidify, pop them out, and then just throw these entire blocks into the chicken coop and let them pick at it. It's pretty cold in the garage tonight, and this is taking a while to melt back down. So I'm gonna pop the lid off and take a knife and cube this up a little bit to help it melt down a little bit quicker. Oh yeah. See if I can get a better view for you. That'll help it melt down a lot quicker. Alright, we're pretty much melted down now, so I'm going to go ahead and add in our scratch grains. You might have noticed in that last clip that it looks kind of chunky. One thing I've noticed working with tallow is that it's very temperature sensitive. So the scratch grain that I put in here was a little bit cooler, or a lot cooler, than the tallow itself. It doesn't take much for tallow to solidify. Just a slight drop in temperature will cause it to solidify. I'll show you, for instance, if I stick my finger in here, pull it out, there, it's already, I don't know if that will focus. Well, I'm not able to get it to focus on my finger, but it literally solidified on the tip of my finger in a matter of seconds. And now I've got tallow on my finger. You're welcome. Anyways, I let this sit a little bit longer to try and get everything the same temperature and get the tallow melted back down. It's looking pretty good right now, so I think I'm going to start scooping this and pouring this into our soap molds. I've got some leftover styrofoam from a package I received that I'm just going to lay down between my trays and the crock pot so I don't get drippings all over my workbench. Alright, I've got one mold filled. I am going to take this outside and set it on the patio. It's about 27 degrees outside right now, so that should solidify pretty quickly. I filled both of my molds, but I've got this leftover movie theater cup and a little bit of tallow left. So I'm going to pour this into this cup and then set this in a snowbank outside. And when it solidifies, I should be able to cut the cardboard off around the suet block. The chickens are gonna love this. Tell you what. Looks pretty gosh darn good to me. And there you have it. Venison tallow with some scratch grains mixed in a cardboard cup. Let that solidify and just peel this cup right off of it. We'll see how that goes. In theory it should work. I let these sit outside for about a half hour and you can tell they've solidified already. I'm going to let these sit overnight, firm up a little bit more, and then tomorrow I have decided that I'm going to cut these into, I don't know, maybe quarters, just so I can make it last a little bit longer. Otherwise, if I throw a whole block in there all at one time, they'll overdose on tallow. Okay, it's the next morning, and I'm ready to pop our suet blocks out of the molds. Just going to loosen up the edge of the silicone here and see if we can just pop this out. Oh yeah, piece of cake. Peel this back. Wow, look at that. Looks like marble. As you can see, the scratch grains sank to the bottom, leaving about an inch and a half of pure tallow at the top, which isn't a big deal. The chickens will consume that. So as I mentioned, I decided I was going to cut these into quarters. So I'm going to take my knife here, find a halfway point. I don't know how this is going to work, if it's just going to shatter it or what, but we'll give it a shot here. Okay, getting through these scratch grains is going to be a challenge with this, so I'm going to get my hacksaw. Alright, got the old trusty hacksaw, and that is not halfway. Whatever, we'll make it work. There she be. So I'm just gonna store these cubes in this Tupperware container here, and I'll keep these in the garage. They'll stay nice and cool out here, and then when I want to give them to the chickens, I'll just give them to the chickens. So this is the Suet block that we put in the movie theater cup. I'm actually not going to have to cut this, it'll just fall right out. Ta-da! So this is largely just venison tallow, a little bit of seed left at the bottom. But like I said, they'll eat this straight tallow. When I threw one of our deer carcasses out with the chickens earlier this winter, they took care of the tallow within a day. I've only got 7 birds out there, and they went to town on that tallow. And then it took them a little bit longer to clean up the meat on the carcass, but they love this tallow. Can't blame them in the winter. Put a little extra fat on the bones and keep you warm. So they're gonna love this. I'm gonna mix in these little scraps here that are falling off into their food as a little treat. All right, we got one block left to do here. Voila, venison tallow suet blocks for our ladies out back.